And we're live. How you doing, Sarah?
Yeah, not too bad yourself.
It's awfully early in Australia, isn't it?
It's not too bad. 6:30.
On a Saturday? Oh man, that's impressive. I don't think I get up that early on the weekends, so I try to stay in.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's always early here. I think some, now that we're coming into summer, sun comes up probably like just after 4 a.m.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, trying to sleep in or anything like that, you feel like it's a waste of the day.
Okay, so you guys are in summer season now.
Yeah, so just hit summer, obviously December, and yeah, it's heating up really quickly.
How hot does it get there?
This week has been pretty hot. So I think we hit 40 on Wednesday, which is about 104 or 5 for you guys, I think.
Okay,
But yeah, most of the week around the same.
but is that pretty typical in your area to get that hot?
Yeah, over summer. So usually it's probably around January, February. Like last summer, it was insane. I think we had days, it was um, in the low to high 40s for about 3 weeks straight.
Oh, okay. I know you're which part of the country? You're on the east side of the country or the west side?
West side. So I'm in Perth.
Oh,
So pretty much out here, isolated to the rest of the country,
oh,
really.
there's not that many cities on the west.
No, not really. So the closest capital city to Perth oh, would probably be either Adelaide or Darwin. So I think they're both about 3 hours
Oh, okay.
by flight. So yeah, apart from that, it's,
Yeah, you guys are a huge continent.
yeah,
So,
you forget how big it is, really.
yeah, and you guys are divided in what into west, east, north, and south, or you guys have like a central or
Pretty much just east, east west
oh
kind of
east
thing.
west.
So yeah, pretty much. Like you do have Darwin, which is up north, so the Northern Territory, but not really a lot goes on up there. Like they're tiny compared to the rest of Australia. Then you've got Tasmania all the way down south, but again, pretty small in comparison. And then you've got Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane for the east coast, and that's pretty much where the majority of Australia lives.
Oh, okay. So how big is the population size? How big is the area that you live in? About how many? Just roughly. I mean,
I think there's about 2.5 million in Perth.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're getting bigger, so a lot of people migrating here, which is good and not good.
So what's the big industry?
Mining,
Oh, okay. You guys considered
yeah,
a mining community?
oh, big time. So, have you ever heard of FIFO, fly in, fly out?
No.
So, up north in Western Australia, or and central and whatnot, it's really, really big for mining. So we've got bauxite, um, gold, gold, lithium's a bit of a big one. Yeah, and a whole heap of other stuff. So it attracts everyone from everywhere, and they get paid a lot of money to sort of do it, I guess. So
Oh, okay. Because well, I know this is not the proper way to base a. Hold on, let me stop this. But I was watching a show on Netflix about ranching, and that's why I was kind of curious of what it's like in Australia. Because one of the things they do talk about is that everybody has helicopters to get around over there. Um, I guess in the show they portray as Australia, the northern part of the country being all cattle and stuff. I think the show's called Territory.
Oh, yeah, I have heard of that one, and it's on my list to watch. Yeah, there's a lot of stations as well. So pretty much above, I think it's 26 parallel. Should really know these things a little bit better, but yeah, so the real northern parts of WA and inland Northern Territory is just full of stations. Same with Queensland as well, a lot of it there, and yeah, they'll have their own helicopters, own sort of private planes and stuff like that, just because they're so isolated. Like they'll be 1,000 kilometres away from, you know, another station or any sort of life.
So stations are considered what, like ranches or?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we consider ranches. So I'm taking that northern Australia's our equivalent of Texas in the United States, because that's kind of what but except you can drive to most of Texas.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, like, you could drive to most of these places as well if you wanted. It would just take a while and it cost a lot of money. Like, I guess, how big's Texas, like, in the scheme of things?
I don't think it even really covers much of Australia, but it's the one of the bigger states in the United States. I think the biggest is obviously Alaska, but that's kind of in between Canada and us. So, but I don't know. I think Tommy's here. He's a Texan. You should be able to say how big that state is. I know it's bigger than California. I know that for a fact. And it takes me almost 2 days to be able to drive from literally the far west point all the way to the far east point of Texas. So it takes you about 2 days of driving.
Yeah, and that'd probably be similar.
Okay, there you go. It's they said 268,000 square miles. You guys do miles, or you guys do inches, or
kilometers? So
kilometers. Yeah, you guys are right, like the rest of the world. We're the only holdouts still that are using I guess the English unit. What is this? Funk wants to know if you've been stung by any bees yet. If so, does she regret attracting it on purpose? Oh, he's insinuating because you're very sweet.
No, it'd be probably it'd be to do with the wildlife ponds. And funnily enough, I'm actually allergic to bees, but it won't deter me from trying to attract them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because I just kind of stumbled across your channel. It hasn't really been up that long. It's been up and running for what, about a month?
Yeah, just over a month. I think beginning of November, I sort of finally delved into it.
Oh, no, the blue butt bee, whatever that is.
The blue banded bee.
Oh.
It's a blue bee.
Oh, okay. And what I was going to ask you is, for somebody that just started up a channel, you come across as very sure and easy in front of the camera. Most people, it takes them a little while. Now, this is my assumption, and you know what happens with assumptions, but I get the impression that this is not your first go around on YouTube. Did you have a previous channel or something else you were doing before?
Not really. And it was quite funny because I obviously heard your little spiel about me on your live stream with Jake and Katie as well. And I was like, it's definitely not how I felt when I started. So a lot of it was really just finding my confidence again. So I used to, just post a lot of shit, I guess, on Instagram stories and, was really confident and stuff with that. But no, this is my first attempt at YouTube.
Now, do you have a lot of experience with plants? Because I also see that you keep a lot of houses that you're building your garden. Is that something that you're very knowledgeable about, or is it something you've been learning on the go?
Yeah, learning on the go as well. So it all pretty much started, yeah, COVID, when I
Oh,
was
okay.
basically able to build my house, and sort of went down that path, and then had to start thinking about, what I wanted for landscaping and all that type of thing, and then just started learning about stuff as I went, and making a lot of mistakes along the way, but it's
Yeah,
been fun.
the other thing that I find interesting is your artistic side. You know how you've made your home your home. You really have put your fingerprint on it. You got murals everywhere. I didn't realize you had them even inside your house.
Yeah, I've got a couple inside the house. Yeah, that sort of just eventuated as well. So I did the outside mural, and then I think it was after that that I actually realized it was my house, kind of thing. And you can just sort of do what you want. Like, I think, I'm not sure what it's like over in the US, but a lot of the new house builds and things like that, especially around Perth, like we've got a lot of new estates. They're all pretty generic kind of thing, like all the houses.
Yeah.
They go down like the same sort of like color palettes and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of had that to begin with. And then I was like, hang on a minute, like, I prefer to live in a life full of color.
Now, that's something you've always gravitated to, is a lot of different colors and stuff like that. And I'll tell you why it attracts me.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I've just never really been just a black and white sort of person. Like, I think just naturally gravitated towards color and rainbows, and yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was very interesting because culturally, a lot of when you go to Mexico, traditionally, what you're going to see is a lot of the the sculptures, the pieces that they sell you for your furniture and home are these bright, vivid colors. Are these really bright, vivid colors? And as soon as I saw that, that's what it kind of reminded me. Is every time I go down to Mexico, it's kind of like walking the tourist sites where you have all these bright blues, reds, pinks, yellows. And I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's so cool. I wonder if that was just a common thing that, part of the culture down there, or is that just a uniquely a Sarah thing?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely, a little bit more of a just a Sarah thing, and it's probably similar. Like, you go over to Bali, which is obviously really
Mm.
quite close to Perth. So Bali is actually closer for me than any other Australian city. So I would find myself gravitating over there rather than sort of going elsewhere in Australia, because, well, one, it was a lot cheaper, and two, it was an actual holiday kind of thing. And they've got a lot of places, filled with color, and just, it just really creates an actual atmosphere, I guess. And I love it.
Now, have you always had this ability to paint and stuff like that, or is that something that also kind of recently was discovered?
Um, I've always been creative without sort of realizing how creative I sort of could be, if that makes sense. And then, the more I'd sort of delve into something, I'd go, oh, I can actually do this. And then just get better at it along the way, the more I sort of did it. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's interesting. You do the one thing that, especially like in the aquascape community that they talk about, is drawing it out, your idea, putting it on paper, and then trying to build off of that. And I saw that in a couple of your videos where, well, you did it in the pond video, and you did it, I think, in the one with the overhead, the one that's right behind you. And you actually sat down and you just doodled it out real quick because you wanted to put that idea on paper. I wish I did that
Yeah.
more, but no, I'm more of a in the moment as I'm going. I'm very impatient.
Well, I don't actually do that prior. So that was purely to try and, I guess, put what was in my head onto paper. Like, I was watching actually some of Ty's videos the other day, and he does similar things with his pond, but can actually explain what he's doing a lot better than me in terms of like, I'll just go down to the local hardware store, for example, like PVC pipe connections and all that sort of stuff. I don't really know what they're called in terms of like the actual joints and whatnot, but I'll go, yep, that one looks like it's one that I'll need. Yep, so I'll need this many of them, and yeah, I just work it out as I go.
Oh, so you follow Ty, the koi pit?
Yeah, stumbled across him through
Okay.
one of the channels the
Now,
other day, and
now,
really
now.
enjoyed it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, only found him the other day through one of the streams. Obviously, now that I'm sort of engaging with a lot more of them. But yeah, no, I really like his style, and his videos great.
Yeah, because one of the things that I do is I'll, like, when I first found Ty's channel, I'll go to the comments, and if I see other people that I'll click on it because it lets you look at their channel, and if I see they're creating content that's related to the hobby, I'll go give them an automatic sub. So I was thinking that maybe I had done that, and maybe a comment that you might have posted on there, and then the algorithm just kind of started sending me stuff when you were starting to post stuff. Because a lot of the times, I like we were talking yesterday, I'm working graveyard, so there's nothing going on. So the only thing I'm doing is I'm going through YouTube and just trying to find.
I watched that on your new podcast, or is it called a podcast? I'm still getting used to all these
you know what?
terms.
You can call it whatever you want. I don't know. It's really the only reason I guess you wouldn't call it a podcast is because we're recording it. Because podcast traditionally was just audio and a conversation, but I don't know. Nowadays, that seems to be the generic term thrown around on these. Yeah, I guess you could call it a podcast. We call it live stream because that's what they were called here on YouTube. I guess even before podcasts kind of became a thing. So, but technically, I guess it is a podcast because it's an interview between. Well, yeah, it is an interview because I am asking you questions.
Well, but your one, like the plug, that's one I was talking about. So yeah, I watched that the other night. For me, I think it was quite late, and I was sitting there trying to edit a new video while watching, and I'm like, what's going on? And then no, it's quite interesting though. It's just sort of seeing how you navigate YouTube, and finding all the just random people, which I've really enjoyed.
The whole thing for me is always, I'm by no means an introvert. That terminology does not fit me. But in this community, it's kind of hard to find a lot of people that are extroverts. You got to kind of bring them into you, and so that's kind of what I've done. I go out there and I'm always trying to meet new people. I'm very interested by people in general. I just find I don't I just like knowing who they are, what they're doing, what it's like, where they're at. Just I don't know. I guess I'm nosy. I'm just nosy, but I really have. It's something I've ever since the kid. I was the one kid in classroom that would always get in trouble because he just wouldn't shut up, and it's still kind of the same situation now. Even when I go to work, it'll be quiet, and everybody knows when I show up because automatically it's hey, the guys that are here that I associate with the most know that I'm always giving them a hard time just for the sake of giving them a hard time, not because they've done anything. It's just that's kind of just my, I guess, my way of showing appreciation for them. I guess it would be affection is actually the word. That
you love the banter.
Oh, I love it. That's I see. I grew up in a family of mostly men. From my dad's side, that's the part of the family that I'm the closest to, and they were 12 brothers and sisters, 3 sisters. So all the rest of them are males, and they're all within a couple of years apart from each other. And and I remember growing up whenever we had a family function, it was just the most ridiculous insult that they could fling on each other is what they would do, but that was just the way they interacted, and that was kinda like it was interesting because if you weren't doing it, the impression was, "What's really going on? Are you mad at me?" It's I don't know if that's a normal, um, dynamic that most families have, but it was for me growing up. So, that left a big imprint in my personality, so people know the closer you are to my circle, the nastier and more obscene I'm gonna be with you because I feel that comfortable with you that I can just say the most outlandish things just to get somebody to laugh, and, I know they're not gonna get offended because, they're just that really close to me, so and you'll see it on live streams with people that I go after the hardest is because I feel very comfortable with them, that I know that I can do it, and I know I'm not gonna offend them. Actually, I'm hoping that they sling it just as hard back because it's just kinda like I don't know, it's just that's just the way growing up. I don't know if it's a cultural thing either because I where I live, it's predominantly Hispanic families, and we all did it even in elementary and stuff. It was just called trash talking or just it was it. I think culturally it's just kind of a thing because even our comedy, if you watch it, it's kind of like insulting, but insulting in a humorous way. It's not meant to make somebody feel bad. But that's just, you know, I don't know.
I just realized I had mute on. Was it still coming through?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Need to figure these systems out. Technology these days used to be really good at it, and it's just a whole new world now.
Now, one of the things in digging around that I thought was really cool, not that there isn't enough cool things, but you play rugby or played.
Yeah, so football. So we've got the two main codes of football in Australia. You've got Aussie rules, so Australian Football League, and then you've also got rugby. So rugby league is the main one. Then you've got rugby union. So over on the east coast, they're really into their rugbies. On the west coast, it's primarily AFL. So yeah, I played that for a little bit, but I don't anymore. I hung up the boots because I kept getting injured.
Now, what kind of level were you playing at? It was just like an adult league, or were you actually playing at a organization level? Like a
I
organized.
was I did do one season with what they call it here is the Waffle, so the WA Football League. So I did one with them in their reserve side, female team, and then I hurt my shoulder, so I needed to have surgery on my shoulder, and then that was a really hard recovery, and it was actually through COVID as well. So it really got me down in the dumps, not being able to do anything in general, and then also being in a lot of pain and recovering and whatnot. And I said after that I wasn't going to play again. But then after I built my house, I was solo living, and I was like, oh, I should probably find some friends, close by and whatnot. And went down and signed up for the local footy team again down here. And it was mainly just so that, the culture around it, I guess. There's really good vibes. You sort of, the females would go out and play in the mornings. And then, you'd sort of stick around all day, watch all the men's teams play throughout the day. And I'll just sit on the sideline, drink a beers.
Now, are they different rules as far as because I know rugby being it's like American football but on steroids. And what I mean by that is there's no padding, but these guys are flying at each other at 100 miles an hour trying to take their heads off. Now, is that still kind of similar to the sport you were playing, or is it a little bit more hands off?
So definitely it's not really hands off, but it's a lot quicker. So You can't tackle as high, so there is a little bit more boundaries, and you'll find that the actual players in AFL are a lot leaner. They're a lot more, I guess, a different type of athletics. So if you look at a lot of the rugby blokes, a lot of them you'll find, Islander boys and things like that. I forget all the positions, but they're big, big boys. Yeah. Or men, hence why they can probably take these massive hits and stuff like that. And you do have a few of them in AFL. So you'll find that your backline in AFL, you've got 18 players, and so your backline will generally be a lot bigger. And then you also have your forward line as well, because the way that they kick goals is different to the way that you obviously go for your tries. So it's all about getting it through these big sticks. And yeah, you'll have some bigger ones forward, bigger ones back, and then you'll have your midfielders and stuff like that who'll generally just be these like muscly, speedy, jets kind of thing.
So the object of the sport is, do you guys actually pass the ball to each other, or is it more running it toward the end zone or the goal?
Handball. So there's a bit to it. So you can't throw the ball. So obviously you do your throw in rugby, but they've got what you call a handball. So you've got to, I don't know if I can do it, like.
Oh, okay. You got to
like
hit
that.
The back of the ball. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much, and get it to the player. So you can't run with the ball more than 15 meters without bouncing it. And then, so obviously it's a egg-shaped ball as well. So, bouncing it isn't like just bouncing a basketball or anything like that. So there's a bit of skill to it. And then you've also got to be able to do that without being tackled. Then you've got to get the ball down into your forward line, or some people can manage to kick really, really long and get it through the goals. But yeah, the idea is that you want to get it down to your forwards, and then they'll sort of set up for goal and got to kick it through.
Now, is this something that you grew up playing, or is it something you kind of picked up later on in life? Or because it seems like it's like, what is the Australian national sport?
It's definitely the biggest sport in Australia. So probably apart, like cricket is probably on par in terms of it's a different season. I don't think you guys even have cricket though, do you?
No. Well, it's starting to become a thing in the States where we're always, if we didn't invent it here, we'll always be the last ones to adapt other sports. It's kind of like I don't know. It's like soccer or football, the football worldwide is the international sport, but in the United States, they decided they were going to change it up, and gradually now over the years, created a bigger following because we're so diverse as a population that everybody else that grew up playing that sport goes, oh, okay, now we have it here too. So it's growing, but we're way behind the curveball compared to the rest of the world.
And that's probably similar with Australia as well. Like soccer, football isn't massive in comparison to the other codes of football. But I guess, being so diverse and having a lot of, different cultures throughout Australia, like I think in terms of population density, I think we've got one of the largest multicultural, I don't even know the words right now, diversity, I guess, throughout Australia. And a lot of them obviously prefer like European migrants and things like that. They definitely prefer soccer. But if you're very much Australian, it's either rugby or AFL pretty much. So I actually got into AFL when I was about 10, 11. So I used to live on the east coast of Australia. So I migrated over to the west coast when I was 10, and I was very much used to rugby. So prior to that, it was just all rugby, and didn't even really know that AFL existed. moved over to the West Coast, and it was just the complete opposite. Like, you couldn't even watch a rugby game unless you had Foxtel and stayed up till 2:30 in the morning. It was insane.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that I found that very interesting because I don't know. It's just you think you hear of that sport and you assume most of the people that play it are like big physical specimens, kind of like the sport here in football, American football is, so that's just kind of, you don't realize that there's different aspects to it, I guess. But I just found it interesting. I go, oh, that's pretty cool. It's just it, learning that you're kind of athletic and willing to do something like that, because it takes a different mindset to go up against somebody where you're running full speed and just kind of put your shoulder down and give it to them.
Yeah, and look, to be completely honest, like, especially in the female competition, it's probably why I've gotten a few injuries and stuff like that. There's some big girls in the female side of the competition. So the female leagues really only sort of really started developing over the last probably 10 years, I think. So they did bring in AFLW, which, don't want to insult anyone here, but I don't think there's too many Australians, but Mark's an AFL man by the looks of it. But it was horrible to watch, like, to be completely honest. So they're broadcasting these female top tier games, you could say, and the scores were dismal. Like, when you compare it to the males at obviously the elite level, in a really good game of football, you'd be looking at scores over 100 for the winner majority of the time. For the female league, they were probably lucky if they were getting to 20.
Oh well, but that was pretty cool. That was something that I thought was very, very interesting, and I wanted to ask you about it because I don't understand a whole lot of it, but I wanted to learn about it, so I figured I'd bring that up. I don't know if that was something that you wanted made public, but
Oh, look, I don't mind. A lot of it's out there if people want to find it, I guess.
now getting to the hobby side of it, how long have you been practicing the hobby, or is this also something that is fairly recent?
It's fairly recent. So it was pretty much, I don't know how far back you went on my videos, but pretty much earlier this year, I pretty much burned myself out in the job that I was in at the time. I had a lot of people die, unfortunately, in a really short space of time towards the end of last year. And instead of really sort of focusing on dealing with grief and things like that, I put all my energy, I guess, into work and not actually thinking about any of the other stuff that was going on. And yeah, it got to the point that I snapped and ended up on a 3-month career break. And that's when I started, doing stuff and built the outdoor tank, and then found the therapy side of it, like just being able to sit down and look at the fish and it would calm me. And then I was like, okay, I want more fish. And it just, eventuated, which by the sounds of now, talking and associating with other people in the hobby, it seems like it's a pretty common theme, I guess, to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, so have you always had a fascination for aquariums, or was that an accidental surprise?
Accidental surprise, really. So I did have fish when I was younger. So I think we had, looking back at it now, it was like probably a 20-gallon goldfish tank with lots of goldfish. And, I wouldn't even remember that. And I don't know, it never really sort of not a lot of people had them, to sort of really be fascinated with it. Yeah.
Now, in your area, how big is the hobby? I mean, do you have a lot of local fish stores or?
I guess in comparison to what I hear, you guys talk about, not having a lot. We probably do. Like I've got two main ones that I go to within about 7 kilometres of me, in different directions. So, and then there's another one probably about 20 kilometres away, and there's quite a few when I think about it, but probably not really the same sort of community, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
We've got the fish, just not the community.
Yeah. Well, down here, there's a lot of it, but what happens is the majority of those stores are located in the metro areas. And where I live, I'm real rural. I'm out in the middle of the desert. So, that's why you always hear me talking about having to drive 3.5 hours to get to the next big city. And there, it's like any city, you're going to have all the amenities at those places. But down here where we're at, we're just really the industry down here. Probably the first thing is the military base that's down here for the Marine Corps, and then agricultural is the other one, and then from there it just kind of dwindles down. There's other jobs, but those are predominantly the two big industries that make this community go. So, but yeah, we're I think at 100,000 people, but it's a fluctuating community that we have here because it's a military town. So you always have people in transition coming in and leaving.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is because our winters are very mild. Like right now, we're sitting just in the middle of winter. I got my garage door open. It's 76 degrees in here, which is what, about 24, 22, somewhere around there. And so we get a lot of the people that live in the northern region of the country where it gets very, very cold. Well, there's a bunch of retirees which will uproot themselves and move down here for the winter because it's a lot milder. So they're always having nice weather. So that's why the community kind of grows. It'll go in episodes. Wintertime, we kind of tend to double our population here, and then when the summer rolls around, it's like a ghost town because everybody leaves. Because in the summer we're about 45 degrees, so it gets that's just on average what we do for the summers down here. So that's why I can sit in the middle of winter in my garage in a t-shirt and not have to worry about it being too cold. We complain about I'm trying to think what it is in Celsius, but it gets down to about the low 40s on average, but it's not prolonged. It's just it'll be a few hours during the night, and then once the sun comes up, it warms up again. So I think in the summer, our lows are maybe mid 50s, low 60s most of the time. We're a little bit exaggerated though, because you'll see us wearing down jackets and it's only 50 degrees outside.
Look, to be honest, that would be me as well. Pretty much anything under about 20 Celsius, I find cold. So I'll sit there at work and I'm cranking the heater at my feet, and everyone else is like, "How are you?" Like it's 30 degrees outside, and I'm like, "This is cold," because they're cranking aircon and things like that. But
yeah, no. So it's just it's interesting. That's why all we really, I guess, at one point there was a couple of like local businesses, but the families either moved out or they just got too old to run the business and nobody else wanted to do it. And there's always a big push to somebody to start a business like that, but then I don't know if there's the traffic necessarily, and then everybody kind of there's a different take on what people like and stuff like that. So to stay competitive, it would be pretty interesting. You would really have to find that niche that would be able to continue to drive your business. But We'll
So
see.
maybe you need to try and build a fish shop.
That's what
But
people keep telling me. They keep telling me to do that. I mean, I don't mind. I sell some of the extra stuff because when you keep stuff, eventually it'll breed, even if you don't really do much with it. And that's what I'll usually do. I'll be able to reproduce some of the stuff that I have, and then really what I'm doing is just turning it around and investing it back into the fish room, whether it's I'm getting fish or I'm buying food or a gadget that I wanted to get or something like that. So it's kind of the idea. My goal is to make it self sustaining, where it just it just pays for itself. So that's kind of what the object is. But no, the other thing is, I'm not really sure if I want a lot of traffic of people coming towards my house that I don't know. That's the other thing. You could start off with people that but word of mouth gets out, and then all of a sudden you got random people just coming knocking on your door at odd hours, kind of like, "Hey, I hear you sell fish." Not right now.
Oh, it's a little bit like when I'm trying to sell stuff on like Facebook Marketplace, and then it's like someone will pop up, and I'm like, no, I think it's sold. Like, move on to the next person. Like, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, no. So that's what it is. But now, as far as the fish that you enjoy, what kind of are you more like into cichlids, community fish? What is it that you
Um,
that you strive to keep?
I don't know. Like, I guess being new to it, I'm really sort of starting to sort of focus more on species and things like that. I guess German blue rams were the ones that I really wanted originally. Like, I'd sort of seen them on Nick's channel, Keeping Fish Simple, and obviously he would breed them and all that sort of stuff. And being that they were so colourful and me really enjoying colour, I was like, I need to have them. But then now I've sort of really started going down the lines. I love tetras, so obviously all the different types of tetras, really just the small colourful ones. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not massive into, I guess, some of the cichlids. Like, I think, is it the Imbuna that really love like the rocks and all that sort of stuff. I think for me, I like the part of the hobby similar to yourself of, really just making it a nice planted natural environment for them. All of the plants, all of the colour. So
Yeah,
whatever
my
works.
goal is to eventually make my fish room look like Adrian's fish room, where it's
Yeah.
just you walk in there, it's like a jungle. You just if you move some leaves back, you'll see a glass box where they keeping fish. That would be like the ultimate goal. That's kind of what I'm striving to. But it's hot down here. Everything cooks. I've tried keeping plants like immerse. Not everything makes it because it just we're too dry. We don't have a lot of humidity down here, so
Do
the
the,
leaves just
do the
start
tanks
drying
not
out.
help it?
Does what?
Do the tanks not help with humidity?
I guess not because maybe it's just the elevated temperatures because my fish room will be like 90 between 92 to 88 degrees in here in the summer. So maybe it's a little bit too warm for the plants or we're just dry. Like right now we're at 30% humidity and that's just because I have all these aquariums and they're open tops.
Yeah, and that's
So
it. It sounds like you've got a real similar climate to myself, to be honest. Like, we're really, really dry. Um, and where Adrian's located, so he's on the east coast. I think he's down close to the New South Wales border, based on sort of what I've watched. And they do get a lot of humidity over there, so they do have a tropical climate that probably really suits what he's growing and things like that. But no, it's definitely a fantastic setup, which is very much what I enjoy. I remember sort of seeing him originally on Nick's channel, and Nick would do a tour of his fish room and stuff like that, and I was like, why doesn't this guy have a channel, whatever it was. And I think I was just so new to understanding YouTube and things like that I didn't know how to actually find the channel or things like that. And then I eventually stumbled across this channel. I was like, oh my God, he's got a channel. And, you know, every week I'd be waiting for the next update and getting really excited.
Yeah. They're asking, what's your favorite Tetra so far?
Oh, my favorite Tetra. What have I got in here? I actually, the diamond Tetras. So I stumbled across them. So I've got a few in here. And they didn't look, you know, like a lot at the fish shop. However, they did have them in like a beautiful planted display tank out the front, and I was like, wow, they are really amazing. Like when the light hits them in certain, you know, directions, like they nearly look like a real purple kind of thing. I don't know if we can see them, but see if I can see if this works.
Here, let me get you on full camera. There we go.
Oh, it's a bit glary. I don't know if that's working.
Oh, there they are. And that's why they call them diamond Tetras, because of that spangling that they get when the light hits them.
Oh, they're all, I haven't fed them yet, so they're probably all. These guys are cool as well. I think they're the black phantoms. And I love, yeah, they're the emperors, black emperors. I always forget. But how the males have like these really pretty blue eyes, but then the females have like really pretty green eyes.
Mm.
So it's like, I don't know, they're just also fascinating, especially when you get to see them grow up from, you know, these tiny little juveniles in the shop. And they really start bringing out their colors. Like even the embers, you know, they look like these tiny little nothings. Yeah. And when they really start showing off their colors, like they're just sensational. When you've got, you know, the right school of them and things like that. Bloodfin tetras, I don't know if they're a common one over there as well.
What did you say? Which black what?
Bloodfin.
Oh, bloodfin. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So really enjoyed the bloodfin. And what's the other one that I really enjoyed? The coaches look good, but I've said it a couple of times now, they're arseholes. So they look really, really cool. But if I was going to do them again, I would definitely just probably put them in their own tank or in a tank with Danios or something like that. Like when they grow up, they definitely bully everyone else. There is another one. Oh, the little gold, neon gold tetras.
Mm-hmm.
As well. I've got a couple in there, but they're a little bit more shy. So they're just cool. I don't know.
Now, how many tanks do you have now? Because I know you've slowly been revealing them to us, which is good. I mean, that helps you with your content. But
so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I must have 10 now.
Oh wow. Okay. So, yeah, you haven't shown us everything yet.
Yeah. Oh, I think I kind of have in like throughout some of the videos that like the guppy tank that Floss was in, like that one's actually outside. So when I built my little tier stand for my plants and stuff, I ended up realizing that I think it's about a 20-gallon fit in really nicely where I had the dog bed. So that's now in there. And then I've just got a couple of smaller ones around the place and then a couple of bigger ones in the garage.
Now, the pond that you build outside, how big is that?
Are we talking about the tank pond or the new one?
I guess it's the one that has the 2 glass sides so you can see it from the inside and the outside.
Yeah. So if I fill it up to where it can hold it the most, it's about 660 litres, I think, or 600 litres. Yeah, I think about 600 litres. So it's about 1.4 metres by 50, 55, I think, across. And then I think about 85 depth. If anyone can calculate that.
Yeah. But now where was the inspiration for you to build that? I mean, it's just it for somebody that's just coming into the hobby, that's a monumental task to take on. It's kind of like, all right, I'm gonna build a pond, especially because you made it out of concrete.
I guess originally, like, this is, a part of me trying to be frugal that never ends up turning out that way. I end up spending a lot more money because I don't plan it out properly. I was originally just looking at secondhand bathtubs on Marketplace because I'd seen people build them, these small little ponds out of bathtubs, which would have been really, really super simple and easy compared to what I got into. But yeah, I had leftover bricks from other projects, and because I'd learned, how to lay bricks in other projects, I was like, oh, let's just do that. And then, yeah, watching more YouTube, and I guess the algorithm started getting to me and chucking all these other things at me. And then I started seeing like these koi ponds, like over in England, US, where they had like these big glass panels, and I was like, that's so cool. And then obviously not really understanding, the aquarium side of the hobby and things like that. Yeah, I was like, that's going to be great. Get sun, I'm going to be able to see them, in and out. So yeah, I just went for it.
Now, are you having any issues with algae, the green spot algae growing on the glass, or is it in an area where it's not constant 24/7 light? I mean,
It's
obviously
not.
not 24/7, but
Yeah, it's going to be interesting coming into summer. So over winter, it wasn't too bad. So there was a little bit going on, but I think I was also overfeeding it when I had a lot more fish in there before the tragedy. And then I went and added some Florida flagfish and learned that, you can actually give the fish a break from eating twice a day and things like that. They can probably go a couple of days without, a good feed. And they started sort of taking care of the extra, I guess. But it hasn't been ridiculous. Like, after sort of seeing, people comment about, not putting tanks near windows and things like that and in light, and I was like, oh, okay, you're going to have really bad algae issues. But I mean, even this one, like, it gets the light coming through from over there, but I've also just learned to keep my lights off during the day, and it seems to be sufficient to keep the plants growing. And yeah.
yeah. And, God, I lost my train of thought. I'm getting old. It sucks being old. There was a follow-up question I wanted to do to that. But anyways, oh yeah, what I wanted to ask, did you have any trouble sealing the glass to the cement? Did you have any leaks or anything like that when you were doing that? Because I didn't know.
No. So what I've actually done is there's like aluminium framing in it. So I actually, got that in first. So glued it in, I guess, and then so the silicone is on the back of the framing. I don't know. I saw that that's what they do with their pond installation windows over in other videos. So I just mimicked it where possible.
Now, was it hard to get the materials, or just because there's not necessarily, or is the ponds a big? Do you have big pond suppliers? I guess down in your area.
Not really. So I mean, I pretty much just got a lot, like the glass I found on Marketplace originally, and then I actually got the dimensions wrong when I was building in the frame, and then so one of the panels didn't end up actually fitting. in the end. So it was a little bit too big. And then I ended up stumbling across, I think it's like pool balustrade fencing, just at our local hardware store, which we call Bunnings. And yeah, the size was going to fit. So I just picked a piece of that up as well. And I don't know, it just came together.
No. The other thing that I hear, especially like watching Nick and stuff like that, is I guess the price that you guys pay for fish is a little bit more higher than what we pay here in the States, because a lot of it has to get imported. Um, is that also an issue where you're at, or are you guys kind of limited to some of the stuff you can get?
Yeah, and I guess it really depends what fish you're after. For example, like, you guys probably deal with it with like rainbow fish and stuff like that, or, any fish that probably come from Australia. They're probably more expensive over in the US compared to what we can obviously get them here. So things like your, I think it's your L-numbered plecos and brisnos, things like that. I don't know if I think they're actually technically banned, but people have them. So you're pretty much just relying on other people breeding them. So, when you're looking at Nick's channel and he's trying to breed out like the zebra plecos, I think there's some of them that's like, people will sell them for like $1,000 each. And then, he also talks about obviously like the gatekeeping and whatnot, where I think it was the honey blue eyes that he was breeding. So he was allowed to breed them, but at one point you weren't actually allowed to sell them. And then you then could start selling them. And then you'd have your breeders that were pretty much just picking out all the females and purely just sending females. Like you'd order 10 and they'd make sure that you only got females, or send someone else all males so that they couldn't actually breed them. So I think there was a lot of that going on, and I guess so that the breeders could keep the prices that they were selling them at. Like your pea puffers, they're something that I really want, but they are at my local fish store at the moment, and they've gone down. So they were a lot more. But they're still going for about 85 Australian dollars each. So what's that? That's about 40, 45 US, maybe 50 US. And I think you guys can probably get them for like $5.
Somewhere around there. Now, the other thing that I'm curious is, are you? I see that Nick and Katie have done it, but is it common to go out and collect natives out in your guys' waterways, or is it too dangerous to do that?
So over in eastern states is a lot different to WA. So WA, there's a lot more restrictions and biosecurity laws and things like that. So I'm even more restricted in terms of what fish availability and stuff that I've got. So I think over east, like, because they obviously have, I think it's like the gudgeons, and I think there's rainbow fish and stuff like that in some of their creeks. You can go out and take some, but there's restrictions in terms of how many you can actually collect. So if fisheries find out you're going and stealing a whole heap of them, you'll be handed a pretty hefty fine. There's not really a lot in WA in terms of probably, the tropical fish. So, we've definitely got freshwater fish and things like that. But they're really bland looking. So, if you want the like brown, colorless sort of fish, then you'll probably find them locally. One thing that's cool that we have here is like your yabbies and marron. So they're sort of like your fresh water. I think you guys probably refer to them as like crawfish kind of thing, like small little yabbies. So you can go and get them. And I do want a yabby tank at one point, but trying to refrain.
Now, Ty is asking a question about when you sealed your pond. He wants to know. Yeah, well, he says he saw you use the epoxy paint to seal your window pond, but he's curious if you also used fiberglass in the process of sealing that, or you just used the epoxy itself.
I use like I don't know, like these strips kind of thing. So I pretty much just like laid the strips of, I don't know, it's like a fabric type thing. So I don't know if it was really fiberglass, but I just sort of added to it. And yeah. I don't know how long it's going to last, but we'll see. It's holding out so far, so I guess that's a good sign.
Now, I'm sure you're going to do a video on this, but how's the pond coming along?
The wildlife pond?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The outdoor pond.
Yeah, it's coming along all right with the extreme heat that we've had over the last couple of days. Even though I've got the native plants in there, they haven't necessarily had enough time to sort of, get their roots down and stuff like that. So I've had to sort of get out there daily and make sure they're getting, a good amount of water. But yeah, it's coming along. I need to get out there today and plan to build a bridge. So give my secrets away.
Well, no, that's why I was just curious on it without you having to reveal too much. Yeah, no, I guess Ty saying that he probably that's what he thought, that there might have been fiberglass what you were using for that. Also, Brandon's being silly over here, and he's asking if you want to score up with a kangaroo one of these days.
I definitely don't. So the perks of where I live, I'm actually really close to bushland where I take the dogs regularly to go on the bushwalks. And I guess you don't realise how dangerous Australia is until you start talking to other people who don't have the animals that we have. But in winter, it's dangerous for me because you're going out in the evening and then it's obviously a little bit darker and things like that. So that's when the kangaroos like to come out. When it's cooler, darker, they'll sort of all be around. And my dogs, being border collies, they love chasing anything in sight, which includes kangaroos. So if I'm not paying attention, there could be a kangaroo in the distance and all of a sudden they'll shoot off and that kangaroo will demolish them if they get a hold of them. So I've learned to be a lot more vigilant. And then going out in summer, it's the snakes. So
yeah. I was going to say, everything in Australia wants to kill you. You guys are crazy. Give me a second. Let me roll down my garage door because the sun's going down. It's starting to get cool. Hold on. Temperature's starting to dip into the 70 range and it's starting to get too cold. So I want to close the door before it gets much cooler. All right, let me see. Let's see if there's any other questions for you that I might have missed. Okay. Mark was saying that due to the very strict quarantine laws that you guys have, it's, you also have a lot of importers. Let's see. What else? I think. Okay, they wanted your link to your channel. I think a couple of the people have done that. For those of you that are coming in that might be the first time you guys are one of my live streams, I tend to make people moderators just so that you have the ability to click on anybody's name and go see their channel. Because I see Duckweed Aquarius was asking for that. So that's why I gave you a wrench. That way you can have access. Anybody that's here in the chat is going to have a YouTube channel. Not everybody in the chat actually puts out regular videos, but it gives you an opportunity to find other channels. So it's just kind of another way to grow the community. So let's go back down. They're ready to go for their walk, aren't they?
Yeah, they. As soon as they sort of hear me talking, and then I've also sort of trained Fagin. So my dad works FIFO, so up on the mines, and it's probably quite lonely, like obviously similar to your job, I guess, where you're sort of just sitting there and, looking at data and things like that. His job's quite similar. So he'll be doing like the late shifts and whatnot. So I'll get on FaceTime with Fagan, and Fagan basically has a barking conversation with him. And it was a bad thing to train him though, because now he hears me talking and thinks it's time to
have a conversation. It's time for him to talk.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, let's see. What else do we want to cover with what you got going on? As far as what was the motivation for you to start your channel? I mean, do you have an ultimate goal you're trying to achieve, or is it just something that you just decided one day, give it a go?
So pretty much, it was actually a lot more of the personal journey for me. So when I did burn out earlier this year, like I really did hit rock bottom mentally. So it was a job that I put a lot of effort into, and sort of making the decision to sort of part ways from it was, extremely difficult, but needed to do it because it was just killing me. And I lost all my confidence, I guess, as part of that. Like I was quite a shell of a human for quite some time, extremely introverted, which is obviously probably quite different to what I'm putting off now. And I did a lot of, went to a lot of therapy after that as well, and sort of started, learning new techniques to be able to, I guess, find myself again. And one of them was, segmenting your life into chapters so that you can kind of look from the outside in, and you can really take away, I guess, a little, I guess it's the emotion kind of thing that you're probably feeling, and you're probably going, oh, this is how it looked if you, I don't know, like you're creating your own sort of scenarios in your head. But then when you actually go back and decompartmentalize, I'm really bad with my big words sometimes, knowing what I want to say. And yeah, just finding myself again, finding my confidence was really what it was about, and didn't really know where it was going to go, but it's been a really good journey for me so far. Like I didn't even know that you guys existed in terms of like the community behind the scenes, which I think is fantastic, because it's like, as a beginner in the hobby, it's really hard to know where to, try and access information. And even in Australia, YouTube probably isn't as big, or definitely isn't as big as what it is obviously over in the US. Like I think you guys have really tapped into it a lot earlier on, and it's probably only sort of starting to get a little bit bigger over here in a way. But, when I was sort of searching for help and, trying to research, you'd obviously get all your big players that would come up, like your MD, obviously aquarium co-op, and then you wouldn't really get a lot of the other stuff, which I am now getting, which I think is great, because I think there's a lot more helpful information, and not just sort of like the real generic stuff, and you can actually communicate with people. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not that answered a lot.
No, it's what I like about it is the fact that when you have a little bit more access for information, and I understand the bigger channels put out a lot of information, but sometimes it's hard to communicate with somebody in the bigger channel or to acknowledge a question that you might have. What's great about this community is that there's so much information here. It's just a wealth of knowledge. We have people that are experts in koi's. Well, they won't call themselves experts, but they have several years of experience dealing with that type of fish. And you got other people that are really, really into plants and aquarium, planet aquariums and house plants. It's a wealth of knowledge, and it's all here at your fingertips. And you start tapping into the community, and you start getting access to that. and that's what to me has been great, and it's allowed me to. Well, I still got a long ways to learn, but I mean, I know a lot more than I did 2 or 3 years ago. I go that we're asking a question. There's a couple questions that I need to get to. One of them was from Hagen Hill Designs, Huggins Hill Designs. They wanted to know what kind of camera you use to film your content.
Filming my content, I'm just using my humble phone.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, that's what I use for. As a matter of fact, when I got to record anything, this is what I'm using as a phone. Um, they're good and they're easy. They're dummy proof. It's just point and shoot for me, so it just makes
yeah,
sense.
I think I made the rookie mistake at first. I was shooting everything on, I think it was like the 60 frame. I'm learning all this technology, by the way, as we go. 60 frame per second or whatever it is on 4K. And I don't have a massive memory bank on this. I think it's only like 128 gigabyte. And it was just, my phone was pretty much just carking it, after like a couple of videos. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why am I using so much? And yeah, sort of figured that you could switch things around, make it a little bit better.
Yeah, and the other thing is Christine from Sweet Acre Koi Farms is asking, what was the inspiration for your name? Is Herman the Great an influence for that name, or where does the name for your channel come from?
So I actually don't don't know who Herman the Great is. I should probably find out. So Sarah the Great actually started way back in the MySpace days. So there's a bit of a story behind it. So I guess I would have been about 12 or 13 when I started my first MySpace channel, and I just made my username on that, Sarah the Great. And funnily enough, like that was the big thing back in the days. Like it was before Facebook even existed. I don't know. Did you guys have MySpace? Like, was it like?
Wait, I remember it when it was, but yeah, I
Everyone
guess
was friends.
that was what, like the beginning of the 2000s or something like that. So yeah,
Yeah, and everyone was best mates with Tom. We'd
yeah.
all
Well,
all
he
be
was
friends with Tom.
the creator of MySpace, so he was going to be your first friend.
Yeah, and yeah, so I just had my username as that, and funnily enough, like people just started referring to me as Sarah the Great. Like I'd go somewhere and someone would be like, "You're Sarah the Great from MySpace," and I'm like, "Okay, yep." And it just sort of stuck with me throughout high school and life, I guess. So I suppose I just keep it going.
Yeah, I think MySpace and Facebook were around the same time, but Facebook originally was only supposed to be for college students, and I think it was kind of like a fraternity thing. It wasn't intended when it in its initial conception. It wasn't intended for everybody else. It's kind of like an exclusive group, and then, well, we all seen the movie, so we know what happens after that. But that
Obviously,
was
realize how much money.
they realized that data was valuable, so it, they launched that. But yeah, no. And see what else was somebody else I thought was asking a question, but I don't know factor. No, 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 no. Jesse was wanting you to know that he's the Tiger Barb expert of the group and eating ice cream. uh, oh, question does I what's this for? Question for any breeders. Okay, this is for the group chat. Unless you have any information on that you want to offer up.
I do know that yes, it does kill good bacteria. So
Now, are you guys restricted on the medications you guys have access to for fish? I know Canada is.
yeah,
Are you guys too?
yeah, and I don't think it's to the same extent as Canada. Like I've obviously seen a few of Joey's videos, especially a recent one with some of his caras, I think it was, that ended up with itch or whatever it may have been. We have access to, I think, mild versions, and there are ways that some medications get onto the shelves. So they don't, they pretty much just hide the ingredients in them. Like I did have an issue with some rams that I got a couple of months ago in the quarantine tank. They did show signs of, we call it white spot here, which is itch, I think, for you guys. Is that how you say it? Itch?
We call it ick,
Ick?
but it's
Ick. Yeah, and then so I went down to my local aquarium shop, my favourite one, and they sort of helped me out. And one of the girls there was basically saying that one of the meds that I did get, I wonder if I can find it, but there's a drug in it that pretty much is used, I think, for like if you have like dentistry done and like really bad toothaches and things like that. And then so people obviously knew about it, and then so I think that's when they had to start putting restrictions and things like that on it. But there's brands that have found their way around it to a degree.
Yeah, I know that in one of the videos you were talking about your dwarf neons being able to breed in the aquarium, and that's how you had gotten some more. Is breeding something that you eventually want to get into, or are you just happy with just kind of keeping fish?
Oh no, honestly, like the breeding side of it, I've really started to enjoy. Like, I obviously stumbled upon it to a degree. Like, obviously, with the guppies were obviously the first ones.
Those are instant, just out of water.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'd obviously found out that they are prolific, but yeah, they just looked amazing. And I've got them separated, so I've only got the two different strains. I've got the bluegrass guppies and the platinum Dumbo ear guppies. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of them now, and I'm finding it really hard. I need to sell some or get rid of some, but I need to get over that hurdle and let them go. And then I had the Madakas as well, so the rice fish. I picked up a couple of them, and then a couple of days later, started realizing that they had a lot of eggs, or the female had a lot of eggs. So I then started researching what to do with them, and it sort of seemed like it was going to be maybe difficult. Everyone sort of speaks as to how small they are when they first hatch. And then I just had a whole heap of them grow up, and then the neon dwarf rainbow fish as well did the same thing for me. So that was just a real coincidence. So I just had the plants sort of hanging in there, obviously with their roots in, and then I realized that they were just putting the eggs on the roots, and so I just pulled the plant out, put in another tank, and then I'd find other little fry, scoop them out, put them in the tank, and they're all grown out now.
Yeah, like I've always told people, I mean, my idea of breeding is in the tank, because I guess it would be different, like for, say, Nick, where he's trying to breed and maximize his success rate because he wants to resell. For me, I want to breed, but because I just want more of them. But I don't need to have 100. If I get out of a group, if I get 10 more, that's 10 more I didn't have, and I didn't have to buy. So that's kind of where I'm at. Hey, Constantine, I don't know if you noticed, but I've been hounding you. I've sent you a couple of messages on one, I think, was on email, and the other one was on your Instagram. But I definitely would like to have a conversation with you. So that's where the breeding, and then there's a little bit of challenge once you start intentionally trying to breed certain things. That's where I like a challenge. I like seeing if I could overcome it. For a while there, I just couldn't crack the code on angelfish, and it used to frustrate me because people would say it's so easy, But I think I've got a good grasp on it now. So, that's why I was happy when I was able to do it. But yeah, once you start intentionally trying to do that stuff, purposely doing it, it's a whole different experience, because it's another aspect to get really involved with your tanks. you can only do so many water changes and you can trim so many plants before it's kind of like it's the same thing over and over. So that's why I was curious what your takes were on that.
Yeah, and I think just being able to just watch them grow up, you know, from these tiny little specks, you know, that you can barely see, and it's a journey, realistically. Like the rainbow fish that I've got in there now, like they're really sort of starting to get some size on them that they actually look like fish. And I mean, that's been about 2 months now, might even be longer. So it's crazy just seeing how different it is, obviously, in comparison to your guppies, where, you know, they spit them out 3 weeks down the line and, you know, they're already a centimetre or so. So yeah, it's cool.
Now, when you were trying to grow out your dwarf neons, were you purposely trying to target feed the fish, or you just kind of let them do their own thing?
No, so probably one of the channels that I've really enjoyed watching is Alex over at Fish Story. So I actually stumbled across him after finding out about our mate Father Fish, and I think Alex did like a live stream with Father Fish at one point, which led me onto his channel, and I really enjoy his, you know, really established ecosystem sort of talk and all the science behind it and things like that. And, you know, having the mulm at the bottom and, you know, to try some things like that, like it's not a bad thing. Like, you know, the fish go in there and they've got a meal, you know. So I feed a little bit of powder. So I've got some food here actually. So this is just a local brand from my aquarium, and then I'll pretty much just, I don't know, grind it up and chuck a little bit in there, and it's working.
Have you tried dealing with live foods at all, or is that something that you haven't really dabbed into too much?
Yeah, so I did. So I've got microworm cultures. So I was feeding them to the babies. I was going to try brine shrimp, but just the setup and things like that, it just was going to be quite expensive. But I guess I'm not trying to do anything commercially, I guess, you know, like Nick or whatever. So it was like, let's just see how I go with what I've got. And that seems to work fine. I did have a blackworm culture going as well, but I've stopped doing that. I have a feeling it was playing around with my ramps. So I'd sort of feed them and they would colour up really nicely. They'd get really, really excited. And then a couple of days later, you'd just find them. I had a couple pass, and then I think I also saw another couple of videos. It might have been Nick as well from Keeping Fish Simple. I think he had a similar issue with his rams as well, feeding them like live bloodworms and things like that. I've just given them stick to what I know they love now, and doesn't seem to affect them. So I don't know if anyone knows it, if I was doing something wrong with the blackworms and stuff, then yeah, please let me know.
Yeah, no, I'm a big proponent of keeping it simple. You know, it's just I've done it. I now my goal is to see if I can raise the angelfish fry without having to use any of the live foods. I know people have done it. It's not. It won't be the first time somebody accomplishes that. But I want to see if I can personally do it myself, because then it just simplifies everything. You're not having to worry about, you know, cultures going bad, or, you know, it's just, or overfeeding or whatever it is. You know, it's just, you know, I like to keep things simple. I don't like to overcomplicate my life.
Yeah, and I think it just depends how quickly you want them to grow. So probably,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've sort of learned, when you're hearing people say, "Oh, you need to feed them, 3 to 4 times a day," and whatever it may be, I don't think you actually do. Like, as I said, mine get a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening, and they're growing. So obviously, if you want them to grow a lot faster really quickly, then yeah, feeding them more is going to assist with that. But they'll get there.
Hmm. Oh, there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask before I forget. Now, in your area, do you guys have like fish clubs and stuff like that, or that's not really? That's more on the east coast.
Yeah, not that I've found yet. Like there might be. I'm on a couple of Facebook pages, and like there's local like trading groups and things like that. But I haven't found like actual clubs per se, similar to what I mean. You go on to Primetime Aquatics and they're talking about clubs all the time.
Yeah.
We definitely don't have a lot of that going on. There may be over in the eastern states, like I think as well. I think the community over there is getting a lot bigger as well. They've got a lot more people as well, not as spread out as we are over here. So we might get there. We'll see.
Yeah, and the other thing I was curious about is, are there any other that you're aware of? Any other content creators in your area or within close proximity to you?
Not that I've found. So I don't know. It's probably trying to search for them is really hard. Like, you'd sort of stumble across a few. Like, have you heard of Blake's Aquatics?
Yes.
Yeah, so obviously, like, there's Blake's Aquatics. I think he's Melbourne. I think there's a little bit more in the reef space or marine space, I think they call it. Oh, there we go. GRB is WA.
Okay.
Do you know of any others, Mark?
Is Mark close to you, or he's also on the east?
I'll bet on the east.
Yeah, I was just curious because I don't know how people look at us when they look at the states and go, "Oh, I wonder, who's close to who." You would think it would seem like we would be. Well, no, there's like little hubs where they tend to be a little bit more in closer proximity. I'm finding out Chicago is in Illinois is kind of one of those areas where you have a little cluster of bigger, well, community content creators that are in the hobby. Uh, Another one, well, not so much in proximity, but they're still within driving distance of each other. Would probably be like Wisconsin, because there you have Jeff Kane, you have Jake and Katie, you have Brian and Roxy, which let me see. Jeff, well, Jeff Kane is Jeff Kane, but Katie and Haiti are Hagen Hills Design, and then you have Foxy Fishes and Brian Peplin's Aquatics. Uh, they're there, and I know there's somebody else that I'm forgetting about. Oh, I think Brandon is in there, is within close of proximity of them. So there's like a group, which is so cool because this summer was the first time they did it. Like they kind of were trying to do a little thing where they got together at one of their houses, and now I thought that was kind of neat. So it's been that's what I kind of like about what's going on is that there's a lot of willingness to support each other, and like I said, I know I can pick up the phone at any given time and be able to get a hold of somebody that'll probably help me with a question, whether it's trying to be a better, you know, content creator as far as editing and stuff like that, or if I have a question regarding a specific fish that I'm having an issue with. I know that I can either call somebody, or I can call somebody that can get me to the right person. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from being able to do this and getting to know everybody here is having that resource. that resource is invaluable, especially if there's nobody else, within near proximity to you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what I've been able to see as well. I've sort of been introduced to this community by you. It's everyone sort of rallying around each other, and helping out the smaller creators as well. And it's funny, when I've sort of first started looking into creating and starting my YouTube journey, I was obviously watching a few videos about, how you should be and all this sort of jazz and whatnot. And then more and more videos like that would obviously start popping up on my screen. And I probably need to be careful what I say, but there's nearly like a little bit of a pyramid scheme surrounding some of those videos in a way, because it's like I was starting to stumble across videos where it was literally identical scripting, like on every single video. So it's like, and they've obviously got these coaches behind the scenes, and it's just about going, they're throwing up, monetization and, if I can do it, you can do it, and all this sort of stuff. And really, it's just they're paying someone else behind the scenes who's then giving you like the scripts and all this sort of stuff, and you're then plugging that person eventually, because that's what seems to happen. They'll eventually go, oh yeah, this was my coach, blah blah blah, and then that then gets them more money. And yeah, it was insane. I stopped watching them because I was like, this is just, yeah.
Well, but you see, I'm of the opinion, watch everybody, because you're going to learn something, whether it's good or bad. You're going to learn something to understand which sources are reliable and which sources are kind of like, yeah, this is just more entertainment. And nobody has to point out anybody and make that known. You're going to figure it out on your own. Once you start watching and you start going, okay, I know what this is about. And then you just kind of start grooming your own preferences to what you like. And but it's like, it's like everything else. If there's money to be made, you're going to have people that are going to try to create an opportunity out of that, which to me, fine. It's just, it's if you want to be entrepreneurial that way, well, go ahead. It's everybody's right to do whatever they want, what they're doing. To me, this is exactly what I enjoy. I hadn't met you before. Was watching what you were doing, and look, now we're having a conversation, which, if it wasn't for this thing called social media, there was no way in hell that we would have crossed paths. And if we did, it would have been like strangers at an airport. You're headed one way and I'm headed another, and would have never known that you kept fish and that you like some of the things that I like and stuff like that. So that's what's kind of been, to me, the most exciting part about doing this, is that I get to meet people like you and everybody else that I've kind of had an interaction with at one point or another that's in the chat. And, there's 34 people right now watching this, and more than likely about 30 of them, I've had an opportunity to have a conversation, whether it's in the chat or like us, sharing screen time. And, which is so cool. I'm still waiting to the day to be able to casually run into somebody and go, hey, what's up? I mean, I've had the good fortune of meeting some other content creators, because I do tend to move around a lot, because I have family that's kind of spread throughout the West Coast. But I've got to meet Vibes Aquatics, Eddie, in person. There's another gentleman, his name is Chris George. He's Chris Aqua, I think is his channel. I got to meet him in person. I got to meet GNC Aquatics, which he's kind of been dealing with his granddaughter. So he's kind of been away for a little bit. They just recently had a new grandkid, so him and his wife are all enthralled with the baby, which is understandable. I've got to meet Dr. Mazaro in person, and there's just been quite a few other people that I've been very fortunate that I didn't really realize how many people I had actually had. Kyle from Pet Poseidon. I got to meet him on my fish club. And then there's another Kyle, which is Dark Water, no, it's Desktop Aquatics. He's predominantly on Instagram, but I got to meet him in person. So it's just very fortunate that I've gotten to meet that many people. And it's always been really neat because by the time I get to meet them, it's like if I've known them forever, kind of like with you. I mean, it wasn't awkward at all to be able to talk to you, even though we really hadn't spoken. But just because I've seen you on camera and I know a little bit of what you've shared with us as far as your personality, that it was like a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, that'll be really interesting to talk to Sarah, see what's going on. So that's one of the things that I've been so blessed to have this opportunity. And the other side is that people actually do like to talk to me. So, that's been very, very fortunate for me too.
It's really funny, well, for me anyway, because it's been really fortunate for myself, you stumbling across me, even just from how supportive you actually as a person, and rallying around creativity and stuff. So the video I think that you found me off was probably not necessarily ever going to go ahead at one point, because the week that I did post it, I actually had I refer to him as my work dad. Just someone that obviously not your real father, but provided me a lot of support, was always sort of in my ear that, you're too creative to be in, doing what you're doing at the moment. But it's like, you never really listened to it at the time. And he actually passed away suddenly from a heart attack that week. And I found out while I was at work, and, it was the first death experience in about a 12-month period after sort of going through a lot last year. So I was really faced with what felt like all over again kind of thing, and such an iconic person in my life. Going back through those messages of support and just thinking, you're not going to have that again. And it was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm trying to be creative on Facebook and things like that, on YouTube, and it was like, do I continue down this path and just keep doing what I'm doing, or do I go back to my introverted self, line of depression kind of thing? And it was like, no, you've come so far, especially over the last 8 months, in building yourself up and learning how to take care of yourself. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go ahead. I took a break at the end of that week and smashed out a couple of videos, and then sure enough, you found me off one, and it was like nearly just sort of like someone looking out for me in a way, like the way that Watto was. And it was yeah, it was just things happen for a reason. You learn to deal with life, and I guess that's a lot about what my channel is about. It's just living life, because you don't know how short it's gonna actually be, in the scheme of things.
Yeah, no, I'm always been a big believer in good will attract good. It's just karma or whatever you say. I mean, I've had too many proofs of it to not buy into it. That that paying it forward, that kind of mentality, um, really resonates with me because I've had too many examples of it where it's been very favorable. That is like, that's the least that I can do is share in that good fortune, I guess, if you want to call it that. And not only that, it just kind of feels good to help. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of a selfish thing, but you have this feeling where you can help somebody without wanting to get anything in return, just for the sake of helping somebody. And that's I throughout my entire life, even as a kid, that's always been a thing. I used to think it was kind of being taught to be well mannered because you, simple things like I remember my dad would get on me about if I saw somebody that was walking out of or going to enter or exit a building, open the door for them. It didn't matter who it was. Those kind of things. Thank yous and please and if somebody's struggling with a couple of bags or something, I'll go offer to help them. That kind of stuff. But that was, I don't know, that was just kind of like normal behavior. So it's just kind of instilled in me. And there is a gratification to be able to do something good for somebody else just for the sake of doing it. And it just makes me feel better, so I do it. And I really like feeling good.
Yeah,
So
I guess that's a part of self gratification as well, and it's like it. One of the real basic things that I learned on my therapy journey was there's a book, and it's about filling someone else's bucket, kind of thing. So it's not just about your bucket. I don't know if anyone knows this story that I'm talking about. Let me see if I can Google it. How to fill bucket story. Yeah, so it's called Have You Filled a Bucket Today? And it is probably really everything that you're talking about, right? It's like you can make much more of an impact on someone else's day as well as yours just by being kind, and being that helping hand and avoiding being an asshole, kind of thing. Like if you're having a bad day, don't take it out on other people and destroy them, because it's very good
yeah,
life lessons.
and I like to say that it's always been like that for me. I, what I can equate it to, or what I always say is, I think there was a shift in my life where you come to a realization. And I know I've said this, I sound like a broken record because I talk about this all the time. But I'm really grounded in reality that I am willing to acknowledge the fact that I've probably have lived longer now than what I'm going to be able to live past this point. I'm 52 now. I'm not going to live another 52 years. I seriously doubt it.
You never know.
So I think when for me 50 was a big impact in my life because it kind of set things into a reality, but it's to me it was a good reality because it showed me not to take for granted what's going on around me, or to think that, oh, I'll get to that tomorrow, or I can do that later on, because it's not guaranteed at this point. There's so many other people that haven't made it to this point, but the reality is past this point, every other day is a bonus. Every other day is a bonus, is a bonus, is a bonus. So why not enjoy it? And ever since I think I've kind of adopted that philosophy, my bad days are a lot less. I don't have a lot of bad days. They're very far few in between, and and I like it because I know I don't have an infinite amount of days ahead of me. So, uh, shit, what I got now, I might as well make the most of it. So I try to do it, and that's just kind of been something that shift in my mentality that's happened, that has really opened up a lot of doors. You don't get hung up on small things. You tend to appreciate a lot of things more. It's it's just makes things rosier, I guess.
No, I completely agree with that, especially in recent times. I'm not sure if I shared it with you last night. I can't remember what I shared. Um, when we'll check and see that this worked, but it was like uh, I had another friend pass away the other week, and he was only 34 and got diagnosed with brain cancer 4 years ago. And it's like, one of those things that's again, life is short, so you need to enjoy it where possible, and get up each day and do the things that you love, kind of thing, and surround yourself with other like-minded people, and probably a lot of your natural ability to sort of do the things that you do, by the sounds of it, probably also comes from your family heritage as well. Like, one of my favorite all-time movies is Coco. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, Coco.
Yeah. So I stumbled at, like, it wasn't really a big advertised movie in Australia, and I stumbled across it, and it's now one of my all-time favorite Disney Pixar movies. Like, it just, the whole family and good vibes, pretty much. It's about, just coming from humble places, and, it doesn't matter what you've got. And, as long as you're a good person, really, all that matters.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, and every, it's like you said, just things kind of fall into place sometimes, and this for me has really just kind of fell in my lap. Where I've gotten to meet a bunch of cool, interesting people that under any other normal circumstances I would have never been able to have, and I get to joke around with them. I get to, uh, like I was saying earlier, banter with each other, and some people you just find that connection, and it's a little bit more special, and so that's one of the upsides. Like I said, I for me, I when I started this channel, I had no really direct path or clue as to what I wanted to do, other than share what little knowledge I was acquiring during the course of my experience. But I think for me now, it's clear cut what I like doing. Um, and I'm
Talking.
using, I guess, uh,
Talking.
well, yeah, yeah, that's one of them. No, but I like socializing and meeting new people. So I use the hobby as the excuse to get to know other people.
No,
But yeah,
like, I think that's really cool, to be honest, because you're obviously connecting a lot of people, and it's a lot of like-minded people, which, yeah, you're creating your own community for, we're on the opposite side of the world, kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, it's great. It's like, I saw Brenton's name came up on a post now on Facebook the other day, that I was just scrolling through, and it's like, oh, I know that name, like, and yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, and it's what the crazy part is. I've never met Brendan, um, but there's how sometimes there's I don't know what it is. It's just I guess energies, because you would with Brendan, it's just like I talked to him like if I knew the guy. That I don't even know him. I don't, other than a couple of chats that we've had just back and forth. Kyle's another guy that is just kind of, I don't know these guys, and but I feel like I can tell him, I can mess with them, and it's all right, and I know I started leaning into Brandon even before I really knew him, and he was like a true champ, just ditching it right back. So I don't know if it's the ability to read certain personalities that I see a lot of similarities to mine, that I just automatically gravitate towards those type of people, because I know they're very similar to me, and in the way of going about things. But there's just like them too. There's a bunch of other people, which is crazy because I think I also kind of attract that kind of people, because it ends up finding out that a lot of the people that I speak with, um, kind of are in the same wavelength as I am, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's how it is really though, isn't it? It's like you generally do gravitate to people that give off the same energy as yourself. It's like, I know that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I've gotten myself into a lot of awkward situations throughout my lifetime just because of, I'm loud. I sort of, without knowing, I walk into a room and give off vibes that other people aren't happy with, and it can take me quite some time to actually get to know people because I apparently intimidate them. And I'm like, I've never tried intimidating someone. Like, I don't know how you got that vibe, but it's just because I've got a personality and, probably not afraid to say some of the stuff that I say sometimes. It then just puts off other people.
Yeah, I don't know if I think what it is that I tend to appreciate people who are genuine, who stand by their own principles, regardless of what other people think, that they're willing to defend their own ideas and they're not afraid to tell you what they think. And I find that a lot of those people is what I kind of want to gravitate towards. And I kind of told you that when we were texting back and forth, that one of the things that I really found appealing about what you were doing is just the sincerity of, yeah, I'm Sarah. This is what I like. This is what I do. There wasn't any sugar coating on it. There's no fluff there. It's just, this is me. Whether you can like me or you can't like me, but this is who I am. And to me, that's very appealing because it seems like in today it's harder and harder to find. But
yeah.
So that was one thing that I told you. I go, I had to make it a point to tell you that that's what I really appreciate what you were doing, is that it's, there is none of this. I've been talking about this one. It's a little bit complicated because I understand that some people depend on this for a living, which I'm very fortunate that's not my case.
I'm making coffee as we talk.
Yeah. But when that becomes the situation, it kind of forces you to do some things that might be out of character, but sometimes it's exactly the character that you are. And I've been talking to a couple of friends about a video that I saw where it's kind of like, it was so cringy because it was so disingenuous. And but it's like, I don't know, I can see that coming a mile away, and I just don't have a lot of patience or tolerance for that kind of stuff.
Is that probably some of the younger ones from?
Well, everybody's younger than me for the most part.
Florida way.
No.
I think it's really also dependent as to what you want to watch at the end of the day. It's interesting. Like I do follow some of the Florida boys. Like, is it Paul Caperi? Am I saying it right? PC. But then, the complete opposite to that is obviously Nick from Keeping Fish Simple, kind of thing down here in Australia. It's like, you've got the ones that really want to go really fancy. And yeah, I don't know. I suppose for me, it was just about being me. I am me. And, finding that again was what it's about. Like, if you do creep some of my old Instagram sort of highlights, there was a little bit of old footage on there of, I guess shit that I used to do and get up to. And it was just really about finding my confidence again, basically. So I appreciate that I sound genuine, I guess.
Yeah, no. And like I told you, I thought that was, I don't know how many people I mentioned it to. Man, I found this girl that's doing these videos, but the in the middle of the video say, hey, it's beer o'clock somewhere, and grabbing a beer. That resonated so much with me. And it's not because I'm always having a beer, but I've been in those moments where you're doing something. It's like, gosh, I got to get a drink. And, and to be able to have the confidence to hey, this is who I am. I'm not gonna pretend to be anybody else. That to me is where you sold me. I was like, yeah, this is genuinely who she is. There's no acting behind this.
It was really funny though when my parents watched some of my videos, and yeah, there was some small swearing and stuff like that. And like I do try and limit that to a bit more of a minimum. I do have a bit of a sailor's mouth sometimes, especially after a few drinks. But yeah, you definitely don't want to hear that left, right, and center. But yeah, just being normal. When I'm out doing stuff around the house, working on whatever I'm working on, I enjoy drinking a beer while I'm doing it. So, especially when it's the hotter days like today, it's like, do what you enjoy at the end of the day, really. It's like you can let, that there might be people that judge you for it or whatever it may be, or have their own preferences in life. And, you just learn that that's okay,
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing, though. By you being able to be comfortable in your own skin and being who you are, you're gonna shoo away the people that you don't need associated with you. With people that are gonna stick around are probably the people that really appreciate who you are for what you are. So
Yeah, and I think that was probably a lot about even making the channel as well. It's like there were people out there, supporting me, saying, oh, you should really turn this into a channel and stuff like that, when I'd sort of share my DIY stuff on Instagram, like just on Instagram stories and stuff like that. And I was like, no one's going to want to watch me. But then it's like, I'm getting all these comments and, people, liking it and stuff like that. So people obviously were enjoying it, and, they would comment on my painting. And some of the real humbling ones were, I would have friends that are mums, and they'd turn around and say, oh, we can't wait for the next update. Like, me and the kids, like, they really want to see what's next. Like, what are you painting next? And all this sort of stuff. And it was, it was really cool. And I just didn't really realize, how big of, well, it was a small audience because it was just an Instagram. But so many people were really getting into it. And it's like, I suppose I could just put this potentially on a bigger scale, with YouTube. And if anyone enjoys it, then that's fulfilling at the end of the day. Favorite beer?
Yeah, Mark wants to know, what's your favorite beer?
An ice cold one.
Right answer.
Carlton Dry. Generally, I'm not really into the big craft beers and all that sort of stuff. That's, I don't know if it's like that over in the US, but we've gone through a real stage of craft beers and things like that. Yeah, Foster's is around the one in Australia, Brandon. Going off. Yeah, I just like a good, normal lager pretty much most of the time.
Okay, here's a question from Roxy. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I love colourful ones. But I do love, and I want to get more of them, which are green ones. Hopefully they'll stop going off. I don't know how loud that is for you guys, but the Kabudai Rasboras, so the neon green Rasboras, love them. But yeah, anything that gives off colour, really. So.
Yeah. Anybody that's watched your videos and sees, everything. There isn't a thing that is that doesn't move that isn't painted. From your rainbow. Oh, that was the other question I wanted to ask you. God, I'm glad I remember that. Now, do you guys have issue with water? Because I saw that video you did where you were concerned about using your rainwater. Is water really an issue in your area?
No, so that actually came from, funnily enough, a Facebook post, not of mine, but I was just sort of scrolling through the comments and things like that, and someone else had spoken about rainwater, and I was was like, I use rainwater in my tanks, and they were like, oh no, you can't, you shouldn't be doing that, like you don't know what's in it, like all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, it's fresh water. And they're like, yeah, but you don't know what's on your roof and all this sort of stuff. And look, I live in a pretty it's a suburban sort of built up area, but yeah, obviously have bushland and stuff like that around, but no real factories or pollution and things like that. So I wasn't too concerned.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's all right. But yeah, other people were just really against it, and it's a big no-no. And if you Google it, it's apparently a no-no. And I don't know. I've done a lot of things that are apparently no-nos, but I just do it. It works for me.
You know, we were talking earlier about before we started the live that the computer was going to reboot itself.
Oh, I just did it.
It just did it. That's why it kicked me off my laptop. I didn't realize we were going to go this long. I think I underestimated and scheduled it for too soon.
My bad.
Here, let me grab my tripod. Well, Sarah, I know we've been chatting for about 2 hours now, believe it or not. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of share with everybody else? Maybe something that I haven't touched on?
I don't know. Does anyone else have any questions? I think Zen's asking about my socials. So Instagram, I've got 2, which George managed to find pretty quickly. So Sarah the Great with 2 T's, or Life with SCG is the other one. Haven't really done a lot on that one in recent times because I got stuck into my DIY stuff. And I think TikTok is Life with SCG as well.
What else are they asking? Has someone in my pretty small fish are green in color? Okay. Huh, I was surprised. The computer actually booted up real quick. Let me see if I can get back on. If not, we'll just cut it from here, from the phone. I'll just continue on the phone. But social medias, you're on Instagram. What else are you on?
Yeah, so Instagram and TikTok. I don't post a lot on them these days. I used to be a lot more present on Instagram, but sort of just probably in my introverted self days chilled out a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, except I don't think your email's on your YouTube page, right?
My email?
Yeah, you don't have it on there, right? Because I think that's what usually I try to reach out to people on their email first. Sometimes you can't find it. Sometimes you have to make it public though. If it's your personal email, I don't recommend you post that. But if you can create one with your channel name,
yeah,
that's always best, because then for whatever stuff they can contact you through there. But I think I didn't think I found it when I was on my phone, so I went and said, sorry, go ahead.
Still learning. I'm still learning about everything that I should have on my page and whatnot. Like even stumbling across what I spoke about last night of keeping your username the same as your actual name,
channel name,
page kind of thing. Yeah. So went and updated that. Still Life with SCG, but I've just had that for the description now. That way people can find me easier, I guess. But yeah, maybe I'll go and make an email address and chuck that on there as well.
Now, do you plan to keep? I'm assuming with Life with SCG was because you weren't sure. You want to be able to share whatever it is you're doing. You don't want to be pretty much pigeonholed into a certain thing that you have to do. Moving on forward, will that continue to be something you want to do with this channel? Is where it's whatever you're doing, whether it's plants or painting or doing all that stuff that you want to continue to post here, or do you want to turn this into like
specifically an aquatic channel?
No, I think, yeah, for me it is about combining the hobbies and life in general, and just being me. At the end of the day, I think that's one of the things that I've found really sort of stumbling across this hobby is it can be a bit of a disconnect between certain aspects of the hobby, and I suppose that's where, I don't know, I just enjoy bringing it all together and just enjoying everything that nature has to offer. At the end of the day, it's not about just having, I don't discriminate against, these big, beautiful tanks that people spend a lot of money on and, running your CO2 and all that sort of stuff. But for me, it's more just trying to create a good environment for the fish and being able to enjoy it as well, just sitting down, watching them do their things and, the natural breeding, the fact that when they just give you eggs and things like that, it just shows that you're creating a good environment for them at the end of the day. They're not going to do that if they're not enjoying it. And even just like the latest project with the wildlife pool as well, that's really about enjoying nature and getting more into the natives as well. So obviously when I first built my house and sort of went into my landscaping and things like that, I really wanted to recreate the Bali tropical vibes. Hence why I've got a lot of tropical plants, which unfortunately are suffering right now with the heat that we're getting. And I didn't really know a lot about plants when I sort of went into that part of the journey, but then all of a sudden I turned into a green thumb. Do what I do probably with a lot of it, I just really knuckle down on the research, like with the fish. I don't know how many hours of YouTube that I've watched over the last 10 months about fish, but there's a lot. And I want to do it right. And obviously you said it a couple of times, like obviously everyone's got their own different styles and it doesn't really matter how you're doing it. It's just as long as you're not doing it in a bad way and deliberately hurting animals and whatnot, then I think you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But I think I think they've left, but I think Jake was talking about it on his one of his streams the other day, talking about sort of starting up more beginner-friendly sort of content as well, and that's sort of something that resonated with me as to whether or not someone wanted to start sort of like a little bit more of a beginner stream again moving forward, and creating an audience for people like myself to come and collaborate and join, make a community and be able to ask questions that are actually going to get answered, because obviously you stumble across the big channels like Aquarium Co-op and stuff like that, but you ask a question on that, it's probably not going to get seen unless you're a member and or doing it super like and all that sort of stuff. Mainly, the stuff that I see on Facebook can be savage. So if there was a way to sort of steer people to a real safe space, and I think the problem with Facebook as well is it's very limited information in terms of what either the original poster might be posting or other people responding in comments. Like you can't give a really long response, and whether or not people actually understand that really long response might get misinterpreted. People miss stuff out, and I just watch I've seen a lot of negativity and people just getting slammed, for making mistakes. And I think that's one thing that I've learned about this hobby or just in life in general, is people make mistakes, but it's being able to actually learn from that mistake and people feeling safe to be able to share those mistakes that they have made, and actually be supported rather than like, oh my God, I can't believe you got that goldfish from up there. Also, I didn't realize that that was a thing. That's just weird, you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely a different environment on Facebook. I don't know, but well, Sarah, I want to thank you so much. We've been doing this for 2 hours.
No, I appreciate it.
And I don't want to wish you the best of luck. Hopefully, you find the same support that I've been able to have here. And I'm really excited to see what you bring for us.
No, I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody that was here today. Thank you so much for hanging out. And just to give you a heads up, tomorrow I have Scott from Raising Fish. And for those of you that are not aware, I love doing this, but the problem is I can only do guest interviews one at a time, and there's so many people that I want to share with the rest of you guys that I've been able to come across, that they're putting out content out there, that I decided to do what the thing that Sarah was talking about earlier is another live stream that originally the name kind of was created in Kyle's live stream Outside In Aquatics, the plug, and I actually called them up. I tested them and I said, "Look, dude, I understand if you're going to use this for any sort of content, I get it because it was something that was said on his channel." But I said I thought it was pretty fitting for what I was going to do, and he said, "No, go ahead. Knock yourself out." So I call it the plug because the idea behind it is to be able to introduce other people that are out there that are doing content that I find interesting, and I think that you guys would too. And so that I'm going to have that another one on Sunday. I don't know that one I might be able to do a little bit more frequent, not necessarily so as regular, but because there's just so many channels out there. Last night I had a list, and I think I came up with like 12 different channels. I'm going to try to keep it to 5 so that I can kind of point out what it is that I like about those channels, and maybe it's something that you might be interested in going to check out. So, but that I'll do that on Sunday. It'll be 3:00 my time, which is mountain time right now. But I try to post at least 3 days out to advertise it so that people, if they're interested, they can kind of hit the notification. But with that being said, I want to say thank you, everybody. I truly, truly appreciate the amount of support that I've gotten from everybody, the amount of support that I get from my guests for accepting the invitation to come on and taking a chance to sit down and have a conversation with me. Without you guys, this wouldn't happen. So just want to say thank you to that. And I'll let you go, Sarah, because I know you got a lot of stuff to get done around that. There's a couple of things that you were talking about you wanted to do. So I've already taken up most of your morning.
No, we're all good. I've still got, about an hour and a half before beer time. So I'll probably laze around till then.
All right. Well, you take care, and we'll keep in touch. I look forward to seeing you in the chats, and maybe later on down the road, we'll flip the screen and you'll be doing live now instead of instead of being a guest.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys. Bye-bye.